Well, for more on the themes set to drive the markets this week, we're pleased to be joined by Peter McGuire from McGuire Scutt. Pete, I hope you had a fantastic weekend. We might go and pick you up on the Chinese data just to go and begin with. 1 o'clock should be the focal point today for the local session. What are your expectations from that release?
Well, they're looking, David, and good morning, Nadine. We're looking at around about that 6+ number. You've got the IMF forecasting very, very strong numbers for the rest of 21. So they're looking at, it could, as much as 8%. So, you've got I'm looking at the Chinese government bond rates. I'm looking at a number of different things. But yeah, that could certainly be a bit of a fairly strong turnaround. So good news sentiment.
When it comes to the data that was released in the States on Friday, though, I mean, that retail sales read case in point is what happens when you still have lockdowns, COVID uncertainty, and stimulus is withdrawn. So it certainly does make the case for this next round of stimulus that's been flagged by the Biden administration as, just in time, really.
Well, exactly right, Nadine. And, it's I think they're different matters as far as the China versus the US situation, and very much so. You've got a number of banks meeting this week, and yes, the US will take the lead on that as far as COVID numbers. For a stimulus side, you're looking also BOC, Bank of Canada, that is, Bank of Japan and the ECB. I think will all be doing some heavy lifting, and they might work off that back of Biden's initiatives.
Pete, we have, of course, Biden's inauguration arriving on the 20th. Look, it's going to get a lot of attention. Will markets be driven based on what happens, though?
Well, David, we all understand what happens as far as those numbers coming out today. That's what everyone's looking at for China. You've got a public holiday. The markets are shut tonight in the US, so we don't get any lead from that. And what's going to happen over the next matter of days leading up to the inauguration. So that's a great unknown as well. So I think, the rest of the week is very, I think, tentative. I'm looking at the price of oil. I'm looking at the price of gold. They've had pullbacks. What happens to that US dollar? So there's a lot of large themes that I think you've got to be, from a trading perspective, very, 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 very mindful of over the next, say, 72 to 96 hours.
Yeah, there is a lot live this week. I'm curious to get your thoughts then a little bit further on oil, because it did have a better week, over the past few trading days. Is oil at risk primarily because of demand, or how do you see the supply equation starting to play out in 2021?
I think as prices edge up higher, Nadine, I would have thought that, the shale side, that all of that resurgence will come online if you hit that 55 to 65 dollar handle. So that's going to mean more production. Now the next part of it, of course, is what's the situation. I'm hearing rumblings there from a geopolitical side as far as Iran. No one can really put a finger on it, but that's always I think one that any trader's got to keep a mindful eye on. And then the next side is, where does that US dollar trade over the next matter of days? What impact does that have? If that strengthens, I think that could take a little bit of wind out of the commodity sector, and oil will probably maybe fall a couple more bucks.
Pete, Nadine was touching upon the NZX50 performance today, up margin. Now, I wonder whether that might have something to do with the weaker Kiwi dollar. Now, the Aussie dollar's got lots of focus at the moment, but the Kiwis also had a pretty good run. What are you looking at from that, from a technical perspective?
Well, I think there's possibly, as I mentioned, David, that US dollar could rebound a little bit. It'll put a bit of pressure on the Kiwi and ourselves here. I think we're on the back of China. We've got a better position there compared to the Kiwi, but I think a little bit further downside could be a nice time to be short. I'm not putting that out there, but traders have got to be there. They've got their screen set up and they're seeing what the movements are, and there could be some opportunities there in Asia trade today, certainly for the currency side.
Okay, so we are watching the Aussie with much interest as well in this US dollar environment that we've discussed as of late. So Pete, central banks as well. We will get some news from the Bank of Canada. We've heard commentary from the Bank of Japan, remaining upbeat, relatively speaking. It is the Bank of Japan, but considering we've got, these emergency lockdowns enforced in Japan.
Yeah, exactly right, Nadine. And you've also got that aging population. It's the cost as far as a COVID test. I was speaking to someone in Tokyo. It's around about $500 US. So, a great impact as far as their economy. But the whole Bank of Japan is very much engaged. Suga's, hands on the wheel, and he's not going to let anything slip away. So I think that's really where we look at it over the next matter of, a couple of months. a very, very concerted effort, stimulus and more stimulus and whatever's required to make it happen.
Peter McGuire from XM, thank you for joining us on the program today. Have a great week.
See you, Pete.
Thank you, David. Thank you, Dean.